did it the right way.
Yeah, it sounds like you did it the right way. I mean, there's more than one, there isn't necessarily a right way. There's more than one way to get done it. But yeah, it sounds like you're doing it right. So 175 milligrams. So 175 milligrams, 62.5 milligrams per mil. So 175 divided by 62.5 equals
2.8.
2.8
ml every 6 hours.
2.8 mils. And so then that would be part C, the milliliters that you would administer. What's the recommended diluent for reconstitution? Does it say? It better say.
I got 16 ml.
Recommended diluent contains
water,
benzyl alcohol.
benzyl alcohol.
Yeah. Good. Bacteriostatic, water, injection, benzyl alcohol. And so that's part B, and the total dosage strength is shown. And then you shade your syringe with 2.8 mils. And you're done. Does that answer your question? Yeah, I don't even know if I answered your question, but.
Yeah.
Good. Were there other ones you guys had questions on? What did you want to go over? Did you guys think this was hard? Did you? Vertical line is the y-axis. This is a two-dimensional plane. And so these lines, each one of these lines is going to have a little arrow on the end. And what does the arrow mean? Goes forever, infinity. And so this line goes all the way through the floor, all the way through the bottom of the building, all the way through the earth, clear down to China, and it comes out on the other side of China, all the way to whatever's on the other side of China. This one goes up through the ceiling, up through the sky, all the way to Mars or Venus or whatever. This one goes all the way that direction through the wall, forever and ever and ever, and so forth and so on. So this is 0. And if I go in this direction, then I'm going negative. If I go this direction, that's also negative. If I go up, that's positive, and if I go to the right, that's positive. Yes, ma'am.
When it's written like two numbers and parentheses, which is Y and which is X?
Ooh, good question. We'll do that in just a second. Okay, so now I'm going to make little tick marks on here. So using this coordinate system now, I can identify specific points on this plane. And the way I do that is like Sheena was saying, I can identify these with an address, kind of an address that tells me their location. And so if I go over this way 4 places, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I go up 3 places, 1, 2, 3, this point right here is identified or has the address or location of 3, comma, oh, not 3, sorry, 4, comma, 3. So in my coordinate identifying notation, the first number is the x direction, the second number is the y direction. So the first number tells me how far either to the right or to the left I go from 0, or where the 2 lines cross. The second number tells me how far up or how far down I go with respect to where the 2 lines cross. Does that make sense? Okay, so what if I have a number like this, -3, -8? Where would that point be?
Go over to the left to 3 and then down 8.
So I'm going to go left 3, then I'm going to go straight, and then I'm going to go down 8. Go straight, 5, 6, 1, 2. So it's going to be somewhere right around here.
Practicing Spanish with everyone.
See? Where would that be? So I go left 4, 5, and then I go up 4. So it's gonna be right around there somewhere. So the first is the x, and then the y. If it's negative, I go left. If that's negative, I go down. If it's negative, I go left. If it's positive, I go up. If they're both positive, I go right and up. If it's 6 common -7, then I'm gonna go over 6, 1, 2, 3, and down 7. So we're right around there. So 6 comma -7. Does anybody have questions on that?
What if you have an x-axis that's 0 and a y that's negative or positive?
So like 0 comma 4. So that means I don't go away from the 0 point here, and I just go up 4. So I go left to right 0, and then I just go 1, 2, 3, 4. So it'd be right there.
And then if the x isn't the same with the y is 0?
So in this case, I'm gonna go over 3, 1, 2, 3, and I go up and down 0. It's gonna just be right there. That makes sense. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah.
And it could be this could be negative, this could be positive, but then it would just be on this line or this line instead. Any other questions you guys have? Okay, so if I take one point, any one of these points, how many lines can I draw through that point? Okay, so I can draw a line that looks like this, I can draw a line that looks like that, I can draw a line that looks like that, and 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 that. So there's an infinite number of lines that I can draw through a single point. But if I have 2 points, if I can identify at least 2 points, then these 2 points will define a specific line, because there's only one line in all of the one straight line, which that line actually isn't very straight. But there's only one line that's a straight line that can actually go through these 2 points. And so it solidifies what that line would be, and all the other lines are going to be in a different direction. So this specific line is the only straight line, if it was straight, that could go through those 2 points. So in order for me to define a line, I have to have at least 2 points. Now basically what a line is a line is just an infinite number of points that are so close together that it just looks like a solid mark. But there are thousands of points between that and that, between that and that, and so on and so forth. So this line represents a group of solutions to an equation that can be defined by this mark that I put, and I define this line by these 2 points. But there are an infinite number of other points that are between those 2 and on either side of those 2. So in order to define that line, I have to have at least 2 points, 2 x values, and 2 y values. And then if I have more, then that further gives evidence to what my line looks like. So it's kind of like if I have like a board, I have a board up here, and I put one nail right there through that board's not very stable. I can spin it, it'll twirl all over the place. But if I put 2 nails in that board, then that board's going to stay there. So I have to have at least 2 points to be able to identify it or to fix that line where I want it to be. Does anybody have questions on that? All right. So these equations right here, these are going to be really important equations for this next set of information we're going to talk about. So on a test, on an exam, I expect you guys to know these 3 equations, and we'll talk about how to use them in a second. But you're going to have to memorize those. I won't give those to you on a test, like I did like some of the other stuff that we've done. So if I have a relationship this relationship represents an equation for a line, subline on my coordinate system. And there's a couple different ways that I can represent this and I can show where this line fits on my coordinate system. One way I can do that is through a process called substitution. So when I do substitution, all I have to do is choose some value for x and then solve it for y. So for example, let's say that x equals 0, 1, and 2. So I just randomly choose these three numbers. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to plug this in for my x value and solve it for y. So y equals 2 times 0 minus 3. So y equals 0 minus 3. So y equals negative 3. So if this is my relationship and this is an equation of a line, when x equals 0, what does y equal? Negative 3. So now I can plot that on my coordinate system.
Sorry.
Because you put it
Is that like, I don't know where?
it's basically,
I'm just wondering where you got the y equals 2x.
you
You just made it up.
I copied it out of the book as an example. So if you're given this and you want to plot this line on your graph, one way you could do it is choose values for x and substitute them in and find out what the respective y value is. So 0, comma negative 3 over 0 down 1, 2, 3. I'm right there. Bam. So now I'm going to do the same thing with 1. So y equals 2 times 1 minus 3. Y equals 2 minus 3. Y equals negative 1. So when x equals 1, I go over 1. Y equals negative 1. So I go down 1. And that's the second point. So now I can connect those 2 points. That'll give me my equation of my line. I have another one here. We're just going to check to make sure we did it right, or give you more practice on this strategy. Y equals 2 times 2 minus 3. Y equals 4 minus 3. Y equals 1. So when x equals 2, 1, 2, y equals 1.
That's a little crooked, but yeah.
And then I draw a perfectly straight line. And I make these a little bit bigger. And blammo, I have a perfect straight line. Yes,
So
Sheena.
when doing these equation solutions, would you always recommend doing 0, 1, 2?
No, not necessarily. 0 is usually a pretty good one, because usually if you do 0, it's going to make this drop out, and it's usually like minus 3 or something. If it's a fraction, though, that might be kind of a pain. So yeah, 0, 1, 2 is good, or 0 and something else. A lot of times you can look at it and you can try to make it come out like it's an even number, a whole number at least. And that's usually easier to graph than if it's some kind of fraction or something. As far as this kind of thing goes, if you have to draw your coordinate system, it's not going to be perfectly accurate. First of all, yours won't be perfectly accurate like mine is. Because you guys can't draw perfectly horizontal lines and perfectly vertical lines that form 90-degree angles
Well, we'll
between
just
them.
draw bigger
like I
circles,
did.
like.
And the tick marks in between each one of your points aren't necessarily the same amount. And so there's a little bit of difficulty in drawing it. So you're not going to get perfect squares, you're not going to get perfect lines, but that's okay. But make sure when you're identifying your points, you somehow, if I'm looking at it or someone else is looking at it, they can identify that, oh yeah, this is 1, 0, 1. I mean, 1, negative 1. And this is 1, 2, 1 or whatever. That you can identify it based on the points, and then you can see that it is a straight line. And then you have your equations to back it up. Does that make sense?
So
Okay.
this one's the y equals mx plus b.
Yeah, this equation is actually in the form y equals mx plus b. In a minute, I'm going to show you another way to graph it where you don't have to do it this way. and probably a lot of you guys already know that, but we're gonna do a couple of these because your homework asks you to. And so just to make sure everyone knows how to do it. So let's do another one. Let's do y equals negative 4x plus 1. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna make a new graph up here. Okay, so I'm gonna choose some values for x and then solve for y. So give me a number that you wanna use for x.
0.
Okay, give me one more, Elise.
4.
4, sweet. Yeah, there we go. So first I'm gonna substitute in for x for 0, so y equals minus 4 times 0 plus 1. So y equals negative 0 plus 1, so y equals 1. So when x equals 0, y equals 1. Good, so I can plot that point. So x equals 0, that means I go left and right, nothing, and I go down 1. It's negative 1. Oh, it's positive 1, sorry. And I go up 1 because it's positive 1, not negative 1. So 0, 1. And then 4, we do the same thing. Y equals minus 4 times 4 plus 1. Y equals minus 16 plus 1. Y equals 15, negative 15. Okay, so I'm going to go over 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and down 15, which is going to be somewhere right around there. And now I'm going to connect those two lines. So I'm going to go like that, and that's my line that goes to those 2 points. All right. Do you guys have any questions on that? So that's one way that I can plot the equation of a line, and I can show what that physical representation of that is. Another thing that I could do to be able to make or draw a line is I can use what are called the intercepts. We've kind of been doing that already. So x equals negative 4y minus 1. So the intercepts procedure means that in this method of doing it, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to find specifically where my line crosses or intercepts the x-axis and the y-axis. So if I have a line, let's say this is my coordinate system over here, and I have a line that goes through that. When this line crosses the x-axis, what's the y value at that point?
0.
Good. When this line crosses the y-axis, what's the x value at that point?
0.
So my intercepts are defined as the location where a line crosses one axis or the other. So when my line crosses the x-axis, that's my y-intercept. When my line crosses the y-axis, that's my x-intercept. So I can figure that out. Here, if I want to find the x-intercept, then, or the y-intercept, I'm just going to substitute 0 in for one of those two equations. I mean, for one of those two variables and solve for the other one. Does that make sense?
I thought the x-axis was when it, or the x-intercept was when it intercepted the but maybe not. I don't remember it.
So what did you say?
Oh, I just thought, like, I might not remember it correctly, I just thought that the x-axis, or the x-intercept is when the line intersected the x-axis.
X-intercept is on the X. The
Am I-
Y-intercept is when it crosses the Y-axis, X-intercept is when it crosses the X-axis. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Yeah, didn't I say that?
I thought you said it the other way around.
Oh, I did, okay. Well, so what we're doing here is we're trying to find both of them.
Mhm.
So we're gonna find both of them one at a time. So first, I mean, it doesn't matter which way you do first, but I'm just gonna substitute 0 in for one of them and solve for the other one, and then do the opposite. So let's say y equals 0. So when y equals 0, what's x equal? X equals minus 4 times 0 minus 1. X equals 0 minus 1. X equals minus 1. So I can plot that. So x equals -1, y equals 0, and so then that's -1, 0. Okay, so then I can do the same thing and I can find where the line intercepts or intersects the y-axis. And I do that by substituting 0 in for x. So then I have 0 equals -4y minus 1. I add 1 to both sides. So 1 equals -4y. So y equals -1 over 4. So then x equals 0, y equals -1/4. And so then my line would go something like this through those 2 points. So I find where it intersects the y-axis, I find where it intersects the x-axis, and when I find those 2 points, it's easy because all I do to find those 2 points is I just substitute each one of these variables with 0, and that gives me the 2 points that I can use to plot my line. Does that make sense?
So just to be clear.
Yeah.
Or going back to the one right up there, just a second ago. When the line intersects on the x, that's the y, it's just right behind you, the 0.
So when y equals 0, this is when the line crosses the x-intercept in the
So
x-axis.
the x, when it crosses the x, it's the y, and when it crosses,
So when x equals 0, I have the y-intercept. So this is the y-intercept when x equals 0. Oh, when x equals 0, sorry, that's the y-intercept. Is that what you're asking?
yeah,
When y equals 0, that's the x-intercept. So when it crosses the x-axis, it's the x-intercept. Or when it intersects or intercepts the x-axis. When it crosses the y-axis, it's the y-intercept. Or when it intersects.
okay,
Or,
just making sure, I just wanted to make sure what you want.
I don't know. I might have said it backwards, I'm sorry, but it. Okay, so let's do this one. Okay, so I just want to be able to graph this line. I can do it by substituting 0 in for x and then 0 in for y. So when x equals 0, what does y equal?
What is it?
You guys can't leave me on my own here, it's always gonna be wrong.
So this equals 0. So y equals 0 plus 3, so y equals 3. So then my first point would just be 0 and 3. So we go over 0, up 3. And then I just do the same thing, but I say y equals 0. So then 0 equals 1/2 x plus 3. So minus 3 equals 1/2 x. So x equals minus 6. So then y equals 0. So x equals minus 6. 0. So then that would come out. So I'm basically doing the same thing I was doing over here, except over here, I specifically was just substituting in numbers for x, and I was choosing any number I wanted. In this method over here, I'm specifically choosing x equals 0 and y equals 0 to find these two intercepts. And then I can draw my line from that.
Those probably easier to do that one.
Yeah. The reason why I'm showing you different ways is because the homework makes you do it different ways. But if you could do it, yeah, you could, I mean, a lot of times you can choose whichever one's easiest for you.
Dylan, can you do number 11?
Hold on, let me look.
It's pretty much the same thing you went over.
So we already did number 11. That was one of the first ones that we did.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
What page are you on?
Page 458, chapter 9. All right. So the next method we're going to use to be able to graph lines is called the slope-intercept form.
Sorry, never mind, we got it.
Yeah, I think it was the first one we did. All right. So in the case of the slope-intercept form, we're going to use an equation of the line that's in this form right here. And this is an equation of a line where m is what we call the slope. And another name for the slope is just how steep the line is. Another way that I can identify this is it's a ratio between change in y direction over change in x direction. So like you're driving up the canyon and there's a sign on the side of the road that says this is a 6% grade, yeah. That's exactly what that means. That's telling you the slope, how much you're going up with respect to how much you're going horizontally. Also the pitch of a roof. So the steepness of your roof is defined by its pitch, and that's going to be the steepness of that slope. So that's m. B is the y-intercept. So this is where the line crosses the y-axis. And so that's going to be where x equals 0. And so we're going to do a couple of examples. And so let's look at this number 39, y equals 5x minus 2 is the first one we'll do. Equals 5x minus 2. So b equals y-intercept, which is where the line crosses the y-axis, or where x equals 0. So if this is my equation of the line, it's in the same form as that. So I have y, I have some number, then I have x, and then I have another number. So this number right here, what's that number? It's my slope. Good. So it's my m. What's this number here? That's my y-intercept, or my b. So I can identify this. I know that b is where the line crosses the y-axis. So what's the x value when the line crosses the y-axis? 0. So I can identify one point on the line x equals 0, y equals minus 2. Does that make sense? See how I got that?
Did you just put any number in there for 5? Is that what happened?
Did I just put what?
5x?
So this is an equation from the book, this is a
Okay.
problem from the book, so I just wrote down this problem from the book.
Okay, alright.
And we're trying to identify now what these different parts are so we know how to graph it. So this here, because it's in this form, which is the same form I have here, this is my b, which is my y-intercept, which is the same thing as saying 0, negative 2. And then this is my slope, and that's how steep the line is going to be. So I'm going to plot this point first. So I go left and right 0, and then I go down 2. So this is 0, negative 2. Now I'm going to use my slope. My slope, or my m, or the steepness of my line, is defined as the change in y over the change in x. So it's a ratio, or it's a proportion. Another way of writing this is 5 over 1. So that means I go up and down 5 places from my starting point, and then I go either left or right, depending on if I have a negative or positive number. In this case, 1 place. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's positive, so I'm going to go up 5 from my starting point, which is my y-intercept. Bless you. And then I'm going to go to the right 1 place because it's also positive. So I go to the right 1 place, and then that's my second point. I need 2 points to graph this line. So now I have 2 points. I have the y-intercept. I have the second point I got from the slope. I draw a line that connects those 2 points. And that's the line that is represented by this equation. It's 5x minus 2. So there's an infinite number of points on this line. I could choose, as long as I could find 1 reference point, I could find a million different points based on my slope. I could just keep going up and over and up and over and up and over, or down and over, down and over, down and over. I could just keep doing that in either direction, and I could find the infinite number of points that fit on that line. Does that make sense?
I didn't see how you
I'm
did
kind
that.
of confused about the 5 over 1, but you lost me there.
Okay. So this is my slope. Slope is the change in the y direction over the change in the x direction. If I just have a number like this, another way of saying that number is 5 over 1, because 5 divided by 1 is just 5. It's just 5. If this was 2, I can say 2 over 1. Same thing.
So we're using the M equation rather than.
Okay.
So from this point, I'm gonna go up or down, however many numbers are on top, and then I'm gonna go left or right, however many numbers are on the bottom. But I have to have a reference point to start with, and my reference point I started with was
0. Negative 2.
and what's that called?
Um,
My y
intercept.
intercept. So I can find my y-intercept, and then I just go up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over 1, and that gives me a second point. I can go up, I can do the same thing again. I can go up 5 more, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over 1. My line will just continue in that direction. And I can go up again.
So is that just like the short way to do it, or could you
It kind of
calculate it
depends
out?
on how the problem's set up. You can do it, some people think that's easier and shorter, some people think it's longer and harder. Sometimes it depends on the problem, if it's what form it's in to start with.
Do you try another problem?
Sure. Yeah, let's do another one. Let's do number 41. Y equals minus 3x minus 1. So again, we could use the table like we did before, we could use the intercept form if we want. But let's now, because we've only done one this way, let's use the slope intercept form. So in this equation, what's my slope?
Negative 3.
Which is the same thing as negative 3 over 1. And what's my y-intercept?
Negative 1.
Negative 1, which is the same thing as
0,
comma negative 1. Does that make sense? See how I got that?
That makes sense when you do it that way.
Okay, so I'm gonna plot this point first. I have to have a reference point to start from. So I'm gonna go left or right, how many places? 0, good. And then I'm gonna go up or down, how many places? Down 1. So 0, comma, -1. So then what's the next thing I'm gonna do?
You're gonna
And
solve
you would go down 3 from your starting point and over 1,
Good. Why are you going down 3 instead of up 3?
because it's negative.
Good. So it's -3 over 1. So I'm gonna go +1 minus 3, or minus 3 positive 1. So I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3. So I'm gonna go down 3. And then I'm gonna go to the right one place from there, which will put me right about there. And that's my 1. And I could find another point. I could go down 3 more and over 1 also again.
So that wouldn't be -3, 1, that would be whatever on the grid it is down and then,
Correct.
okay.
Down 3 places from my reference point, and then
But if
over
we do
1
it from
place.
0, it would end up being -4, +1.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Right. Let's do another one.
What if we set up differently? Like, so I get that if the y is there, you just pretty much take the numbers and then those become the places.
I think that equation just confuses people.
What if it was set up differently, is that what you said?
Yeah, well, that would be the 25 and then. How, okay, yeah.
I'm not sure if I understand your question.
Go ahead and look it up.
So I think like the equation over there is what's confusing us because it's set up differently and then what you're pointing out is like the slope and then b. So it's mainly focused on the first equation.
That's because we haven't done either one of these yet.
Oh, okay, I think we were.
This is just showing you that the slope is just the change in the y over the change in x.
Okay.
So for every amount of y that I'm moving a certain percentage of that is gonna be x. We'll talk more about that in a minute.
Never mind. Carry on.
I have a question.
Yep.
Okay, the y-intercept, maybe I got that wrong. The y-intercept is on the x-axis or on the y-axis?
The y-intercept is when the line crosses the y-axis. So when the line crosses the y-axis, the x value is 0. The x-intercept is when the line crosses the x-axis, or when y equals 0. Does that make sense? Okay, good question. All right, so here in this equation, what's my slope? M equals 1 half, and what's my y-intercept? Equals 3, which is the same thing as 0, comma 3. So here it's different. All the ones we've had so far have all just been a whole number. So we've done that number over 1. So what are you going to do here?
Go up a half.
From your starting point and 2.
Right. Okay, so my starting point is 0, comma 3. So I go left to right, how many? Okay.
0.
So I go left to right, 0. I'm going to go up 3, 2, 3. So that's my first point. And then from there, I'm going to go up 1 and over 2. And that's my slope. And that's my line. Does that make sense? So what if it's like this? So they give me an equation like this and they ask me to solve it or draw my graph using the slope-intercept form. Is this in the slope-intercept form? How do you know?
Because you don't have
Line equals, so you need to get the x on the other side.
Good. So I have to get it so y is alone and all this other stuff goes to the other side. So I'm gonna subtract x minus x, so negative y equals minus x plus 4. We're close, but what's still different?
the y is negative.
So I wanna make the y positive. How do I do that?
You add y
So you could add y, subtract x, and subtract 4, or you could multiply the whole thing by -1, or you could divide the whole thing by -1. All those will give you the same answer. So I'm gonna do this because I think this is the easiest of those three. So you're gonna times the whole thing by -1. So -1 times -y equals -1 times -x equals -1 times +4 equals -4. So now it's in the y equals mx plus b form. What's my m? Not 0, it's 1, right? So m equals 1, which is the same thing as 1 over 1. What's my y-intercept? B equals -4, which is the same thing as 0, comma, -4. So I go to 0, comma, -4. Tell me how to graph that.
1 and 1, and then 0.
So I'm gonna go left to right 0, so I'm just gonna go straight down 4 places. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 0, comma, 4, -4. And then what am I gonna do?
Go over right and go up.
So I always do up first, so it's always rise over run. In this case, it doesn't matter because they're both the same number, but just make sure you do that because at other times, like this one, it would be different. So I'm gonna go up 1, and then I'm gonna go over 1. So from here, I go up 1, I go over 1, and that's my line.
Yeah, what did you say, it was what, rise over what?
Up and down first, the top number means how many places you go up and down, the bottom number means left and right. A lot of times people say rise over run. So you go up and down, the top number's up and down, you do that first, and then you go left and right, however many places you're supposed to go. Does that make sense?
On that problem, I just did it the other way, like x minus y equals 4. And I just did x minus y, so minus y plus y equals 4. You know, I did it the opposite. Instead of using the x, I did the y instead. Does that make sense? X,
Yeah. You have to do a y, right? Or can you do it for x?
yeah, you have to do it for the y, or can you do it for x?
So the formula
It's y.
says that y equals mx plus b.
So you always have to do it.
So if you're doing it, if it asks you to solve the equation by using the slope intercept form, y-intercept form, then you have to do it that way, because that's what the question asks.
What do you do, 45?
What did you say?
Can you do 45?
Okay, yeah, what did you say?
I was gonna say, just like, so the numbers, like 33 through 47, that's slope intercept, then.
Yeah, just read the instructions, it tells you. Okay, so in this case, it says to solve this or to graph this line using the y-intercept form. Is it in the y-intercept form?
Not 33 and 35, it's just intercept procedure. So 39 and 47 is y-intercept.
Yeah. So it says to solve using the slope y-intercept form. So is it in the y-intercept form?
Yeah.
This one's not.
Oh,
So what do I have to do to get it in the y-intercept form?
yeah, x minus y minus.
Move it over.
Okay, good. I want to get y by itself, so I have to move x to the other side. So I'm going to subtract x minus x. So minus 2y equals minus x minus 1. And then what am I going to do?
Times it by negative, or times it by -1.
Divide by negative.
I would do it kind of.
Divide by
You could
negative.
times it by -1 if you wanted to. That would also work. Or I could just save a step and just divide the whole thing by -2. So I want y to be by itself. So if I do this, I'm getting rid of the negative sign and I'm getting rid of the 2 in the same step. But you could do it in 2 steps if you wanted to. So now this cancels, so I'm left with y. Negative and negative cancel, so I have 1/2 x. And the negative and negative cancel, so I have plus 1/2. So now, what do I do?
Graph it.
Okay, and how do I graph it?
Like 1/2 on the y-axis.
Good. So this is my y-intercept, so b equals 1/2, that's the same thing as 0, 1/2. So I'm gonna go there, so 0, and I go up 1/2, so somewhere around there. And then what am I gonna do? Use my slope, so I'm gonna go up, they're both positive, so I'm gonna go up 1, and I'm gonna go over 2, 1, 2. So then it would be somewhere like that. And that'd be my line.
And you tell us what that coordinate is.
It's 1, 2, so it's 2, 1 and 1/2. Be that one. But there's an infinite number of points that are gonna fit on this line. So I could do the same thing, I could go up 1 over 2 and find another point, and then go up 1 over 2 and find another point, and so on and so forth. And I could just keep going forever. So there's gonna be an infinite number of points there. So that's one point on that line. But I could find lots of other ones too. Does that make sense? Okay. Does that answer your question, Catherine? Were you the one that asked for that, or was it somebody else?
Yeah, ask for it just to do it.
Okay, all right. So there's a couple more you guys can work on. In this case, if it's not already in the y equals nx plus b form, just do the initial steps to get it into that configuration, so y is by itself and is positive, and then whatever the coefficient of your x term is gonna be your slope, and then the other number by itself will be your y-intercept. And then just graph it, follow the same pattern we did. Okay. So let's look at this. So if I have a problem like this, if this is your equation, what's your y-intercept? -5/8, which means that the line is going to cross the y-axis at 0, -5/8. Might be a little tricky to graph that, but it's a point. And then what's my slope? 1/3. So from this point, I would go up 1 to the right 3 places. What if it was written like this? So what's my y-intercept? -5/8. And what's my slope? 1/3. So these are two different ways of writing the same thing. Exact same line. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's look at another one that's kind of like that. Let's say what's my y-intercept? 2, or and then the point would be 0, 2, and then what's my slope? 1/5. Good. So from 0, 2, I would go up 1 and to the right 5 places. Does that make sense? Good. All right. Okay, I want to put that in the y-intercept form. How do I do it? I want y by itself, good. So I'm gonna subtract 2x minus 2x. So y equals -2x plus 8. So this is the number in front of my x, so what's my slope? It's -2/1. And my y-intercept, 0, 8. So I can plot this point, and then what am I gonna do with my slope? So I'm gonna go
Down.
down 2 and to the right 1. Does that make sense? Okay, good. How do I put that in the y, the slope intercept form? So subtract 3x from both sides. So minus 2y, whoops, equals minus 3x plus 6. And then what do you do? Divide by -2, divide by -2, divide by 2. Y equals 3x over 2 plus -3, which is same thing as saying -3. And then that's my line. So what's my y-intercept? What's my slope? 3/2. So I'm gonna graph it. How do I graph this point? 2, 3. How do I do my slope from there? 1, 2, 3 to the right 2. And that would be my line. Any questions on that?
This was slope and y-intercept that we were just doing? Is that what that was? So there's one on here, it's just x plus y equals 5. X minus y equals 4.
Which one are you looking at?
43 and 46.
Oh,
I don't remember.
so those are the slope and y-intercepts. You're gonna do just the same thing, just solve for y. When you solve for y, then whatever the coefficient of x is your slope, and whatever the other number is your y-intercept. Yeah.
So what about like third number 33? Where it says graph equation intercepts procedure?
So the intercepts procedure, you remember what that was? We actually did 33. So the first thing we did to find the intercept was we substituted what number for x? 0, and then we solved for y, and then to find the other intercept, what did we do? Yeah, then we substitute 0 for y. So you just alternate. In one case, you're finding the y-intercept, so you substitute 0 in and then solve. In the other case, you're gonna find the x-intercept, so you substitute 0 in and solve. And once you do that, you get 2 points and you just solve. So that's what the intercepts form was that we were doing earlier.
And the slope has nothing to do with the intercept. In
Um,
that problem, we're not looking for slope or,
in the intercepts form of graphing the equation, you aren't looking for the slope.
okay.
But the slope will determine where the intercept is. So depending on how steep the line is, will determine where the line crosses your axis, or if it crosses the axis. So it will affect it. Okay, so let's take a break, you guys, and then we'll come back and we'll finish up chapter 9 stuff. And then we'll go home, I guess. Unless you want to stay, then you guys can stay. It's awesome. Goes through the point 3, 4, and has the slope of 2/3. Okay. So if this is the problem it gives us, what we're gonna do is we're gonna come over here and we're gonna use this equation right here. So that doesn't have to have a 2 by it. So, sorry about that.
Hold on.
Sorry about
You get what I write.
You just ruined
So-
it all.
that. Y minus
What?
equation.
y1 equals, sorry, times x minus x1. Okay, so in this equation, sorry.
Is the other equation right while you're at it?
The slope one? Yep, that one's right.
Okay, just checking.
Okay, so, what's gonna happen here is this point, I'm gonna be able to plug one of these numbers in for y1 and one of these numbers in for x1, and then this is gonna go where?
In the end.
Right. So which one of these will go where y1 is? Do you think?
The 4,
The 4, why?
because that's the y.
Y minus 4 equals 2/3 times x minus 3. Okay, so that's my equation. Now I have to put this into slope-intercept form. How am I gonna do that?
Where did you get the 3?
Add by itself.
So the 4 came from here, 3 came from there, and this is the 2/3. So do what? Which thing?
Y by itself.
Get y by itself, good. So I have to distribute this 2/3. So y minus 4 equals 2/3 x minus 3 times 2/3. So y minus 4 equals 2/3 x minus, what's 3 times 2/3?
2.
Right, minus 2. So now what do I do with that 4?
Add it to both sides.
Plus 4 plus 4. Y equals 2/3 x. Plus 2. Bam!
I did it.
That was really funny before though, you were like, 3, no, 4, no, 3 halves, no, 6 19ths, no, wait. That's great, wow.
I was thinking that at some point someone would chime in.
No, it doesn't work that way, you know?
Go with the 2/3 x.
Not in this
You just have
cohort.
2. So 3 times 2 is 6 divided by 3 is 2.
It's a survival.
So they just cancel out. So
Survival of the fittest.
Is that what your question was? So 3 times 2 divided by 3, yeah, okay.
Yeah, just all of a sudden it's gone, I'm like, wait,
Yeah, yeah,
did it disappear?
yep, it's disappeared.
Magic.
Okay, let's do another one. Same scenario, only my point is 2, 3, and my slope is 4. So what are you gonna do?
So y minus
3
Good. Equals,
equals 4 times x plus 2
so it would be minus 2,
Minus 2.
Well, that's
Why is it minus 2?
because
Why
the
is it
formula says negative,
Oh.
so you just plug in the number there, so it's minus that. Does that make sense?
I don't like that.
I don't like that many.
Y minus 3 equals
4x.
minus 8, and then what do I do with the 3? Add 3, y equals 4x minus
5.
5. Woo! Ta-da! Isn't this exciting?
Yeah, oh yes.
I felt an adrenaline rush.
Butterfly kicked in.
Way to use that sympathetic nervous
There we
system
go.
you've got there.
Okay, here we go, here's another one.
Not really, so it'd be y plus 1.
4 plus 1, yeah.
Equals.
Well, would that be positive?
Equals
So it would be y
negative
plus
1/2 times x minus 4.
Good. Y plus 1 equals negative 1/2 x plus 4 over 2. Y plus 1 equals negative 1/2 x plus 2. And then what do I do? What's the last step?
Minus the one.
Minus 1 from both sides. Y equals 1/2 x
Plus one.
plus 1. Dun, 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 dun. So in this type of problem, I'm giving you one point and the slope. What happens if I don't give you the slope, but I give you 2 points instead? How are you gonna do it now?
You're gonna do that m equals y two minus y one over x two
But are we
minus x
removing the two and the two on
I have no idea, he removed the 2 on the other ones.
No,
No, this one you'll keep it.
this one you wanna keep the 2.
Okay.
So you can designate either one of these 2 points as the first point, neither one's the second point, it doesn't matter which one's which, but I'm gonna say m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we'll say this is y2, x2, y1, x1. So I'm just gonna plug those points into these places. Make sense? M equals -1 minus 3 over 4 minus 2. M equals -4 over 2. M equals -2. Okay, so now I know my slope. I have 2 points here. I don't need both points. I could choose whichever one of those points I want. And I'm gonna use this equation right here, just like we've been doing. So just one more step, we have to find the slope first. So I can choose either one of these points, I'll get the same answer whichever way I do it. So I'm gonna say y, I'll just choose y minus 3 equals -2 times x minus 2, y minus 3 equals -2x plus 4, and then I add 3. So y equals -2x plus 7. And that's my answer. Ta-da! Is this exciting?
Just a question, Dallin.
Yeah.
On that y equals 1/2 x plus 1, but your top says -1/2 x. I'm confused right there.
Yeah.
So that should be a negative?
This is negative here. Yeah, there's a negative there.
Okay,
Do we graph
I
that?
just wanna make sure.
You don't have to graph it right now. If it asks you to graph it, then do that for sure. If it doesn't, then don't.
What number was that?
It was one I just made up.
So then I'm guessing the ones that are like 89 through 101, that's this year with the end.
So 89 through whatever just asks you to find the slope. It doesn't ask you to find the equation line. It's the ones down at the bottom, 117 through 128, that ask you to find the slope and the equation of the line. Find the equation of the line, pass it through the pair of points. So 4 and 6, 1, -1. 1, 6, 1, -1. Okay, so if these are my 2 points, I want to find the equation of the line that goes to those 2 points. How am I going to do that?
So n equals -1 minus 3 minus 6.
That's a 6, that's a 4.
Oh, 6. I was looking at the other one.
Oh. So these 2 points here.
-1 minus 6 over 1 minus 4.
Good. So -1 minus 6 equals 1 minus 4 equals, so that's the same thing as 7 over 3. So that's my slope, and then what's the next step?
Then you got to take one of those sets of numbers and you're gonna do that problem over there.
That's exactly right. Which one do you want to use?
Let's do 4 instead.
Okay, so y minus
6.
equals 7/3 times x minus 4. Y minus 6 equals 7/3 x minus 28/3 plus 6 plus 6 y equals 7/3 x minus 28/3 plus 18/3, wow, y equals 7/3 x minus 10/3. Dun, 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 dun. That was actually number 1. What was that? It's one from your book. It might not be one you have to do though.
Well, it's negative 28. Is negative 10.
Oh, it's number 124. Yeah, you don't have to do that one. Let's do 117. Minus 5, comma 2. Minus 5, comma 2. And 6, comma 1. Thank you. Alright, what do you do first?
What's that thing?
Find the slope.
1 minus 2. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right, sorry.
I was just gonna enter it there.
Sorry.
I'm good. 6 plus 5.
Yeah. 1 minus 2 over 6 plus 5 equals.
-1 over 11.
Okay, that's my slope. Now what am I gonna do next?
Take your 6 and your 1, so y minus 1 equals 6. I don't know. Well,
And first
-111. Yeah, 111.
times x minus 6.
So you're using the y minus y, 1, y2.
y minus
Yeah, we're using this one right here. Once we find the slope using this equation, then we are gonna use that slope here, and we're gonna use one of these 2 points in that other formula.
add 1 both sides.
That equation is incomplete. Doesn't it have a 2 in there? x2 minus x1?
No, I made a mistake when I wrote that there earlier. It's not supposed to have a 2 there. It was a
Why?
mistake I made.
So which one is x? Which one is 1?
So the 1 just designates one of these 2 points. So you just choose either one of those points, and that's gonna be where your x1 and your y1 will go.
Okay.
And the other one just stays the variable, because that one will change depending on where you're at on the line. So what's 6 over 11 plus 11 over 11?
17 over 11.
11. And so that's my equation.
So fancy.
So that's 117. Let's do 121. So minus 2, minus 3, and 3 and 6. Minus 2, 3 and 6. What was it? Minus 2, minus 3. Minus 3. Okay, so what are you gonna do first?
M equals
6 minus -3.
Good,
3 minus -2.
good. So my slope is 9/5. What's next?
So y minus
Or minus 6.
9/5 times x minus 3.
Good.
Whoa.
That's the way to do that. Add 6 to both sides.
3/5. Okay, how do you guys feel about that?
Is that a minus 3/5?
Well, if I can read sideways,
Well, so it's negative 27/5 plus 30/5,
Okay, so
so it ends up being positive 3/5. If you can't read sideways, then
I know, right?
tough beans. The test, they're gonna put a whole bunch of problems on the test that are sideways.
Oh,
See how you guys do.
No
It's all
pressure.
sideways.
Sideways and it's invisible.
Yes.
So the answer would be 0.
Thank you.
So what problem do we do there?
I think all of these are the same. There's a couple here that we did, this one and that one, that were, I gave you the slope and a point, which is like numbers 111 through 116. And then all of the rest of these that we did on the board, those over there and those over there, those are like numbers 117 through 128. And some of them are 117 through 128. Is that what you're asking? So for this homework assignment, there's two things I want to point out. So chapter 9 graphing stuff, make sure that you look at the problems on the little handout that I gave you the first day of class. Because it's a less than every other problem. And so look at that, because those are the ones that are going to hold you accountable for it. If you want to do more than that, you want to do evens or you want to do other problems, you can, if it'll help you reinforce the information. But to turn it in, all you have to do are the ones on here. Also, also, if you look at numbers, oh, those are on here, 135 to 144. Okay, never mind. Oh, I was thinking that they were, yeah, nothing. Okay, good. So just do the problems that are on here. Do chapter 9. If you haven't finished the packet from last time, then work on that. Make sure you understand those concepts. The next test will have a bunch of those on it. So what we'll do next week is, if you guys have questions on the graphing stuff, we can go through a few problems like always. And then we'll do solving systems of equations, and we'll do powers, and polynomials, and factoring, and rational expressions, and quadratic equations. We'll just keep going, and we'll do as much as we can. So that's the 22nd, and then we'll have one more week before our next test, and then we'll have a couple other things that we'll do. I probably will give you another conversion pack next week also, just similar to what I just gave you last time. So, do you guys have any questions on anything? Oh, watch your knee.
Do we make suggestions about these?
If not all of us,
What-
but two, so.
Oh, the tables. Yeah.
Like my knees.
These tables are stupid tables.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it'd be a good idea to make that.
Maybe they
color.
thought this would keep us awake, but.
Does it look cool?
It does look cool, definitely.
Cool as a